Hello and welcome to part 2 of the corner Lazy Susan. I'm sorry this has taken so long. Other things got in the way and then the videos got lost, so hopefully now we can complete the project. Here I'm building the shelving, the corner shelving. There are 5 in total. Using a whitewood glue to adhere the strips of maple on the edge. I sawed down or cut down the maple to very thin strips to allow it to bend around this 12-inch radius or so. It's still quite a bend, but with the pin gun and the glue and some clamps, I was able to do it fairly easily. One thing to remember is make sure that the edge is completely flush. It takes a bit of time, but it's quite easy to do. Those pins are really just to temporarily hold it in place. The glue does all the work. Just takes about 24 hours for that glue to set really hard. I think the glue is a Titebond 3. It's waterproof and it is a very good glue. I'm using some steel record sash clamps. They're 4-foot sash clamps. They're made of steel. They're very, very strong, and they need to be in this instance because there's a lot of pressure on there. Again, check, make sure that that bottom edge is flush before you pin it in place. Now I'm going to move that sash clamp right to the edge to make sure that it's in full contact. And then eventually when I cut off and take the clamps off, I'll put some final pins in place of where the clamps are. As you can see, that's under quite a bit of pressure. Although you don't see it in this video, I did put some more pins in place there. And this is the 5 shelves all glued up and cramped. And I leave them overnight to dry, make sure they're really solid. And then the other pieces on the other 2 edges are just straight pieces of maple, stripped up to the same thickness and the same width, and glued on in exactly the same way with Titebond 3. I used a water-based, high-gloss polyurethane to cover the edge strips. I was pretty careful here not to get any of the polyurethane on the base because that was already finished. Those base pieces were 3/4 inch plywood that had already been coated with a maple veneer. I was lucky enough to have that as a cover sheet on some material that I ordered, so I got that free of charge, which was pretty good. It had some scratches on it, but for my use I was able to cut around those and use those for the base. So if you want to buy that, that's basically a 3/4 inch pre-finished maple finished plywood. And the strips are just stripped up from maple that I got from the Home Depot. I ended up putting 2 or 3 coats of this water-based high gloss urethane on the edges and they turned out nice and shiny. After completing the 3 coats, I left them overnight to dry. Now here I'm drilling out the 4 corner holes for the slides to go in place. There are marks on the STL files that show where these holes will be drilled. They come apart pretty easily, just a gentle tug. You're not doing any damage, it's just literally releasing them so you can drill the holes in the 4 corners. The slides I purchased actually come with the screws as well, so that's handy, not having to buy special screws. I'll put the 4 screws in place and slide back the base slider. These are pretty sticky, these are covered in oil, so have a rag handy to wipe your hands, otherwise you'll get it all over the place. Now I'll put the shelf support on the underside of each shelf, making sure it's exactly in the middle, and then I'll mark on the underside of the shelf the 4 positions for the holes for the screws. Make sure it's nice and square. Now from these marks I did make a template which also has 4 holes in it, but I ended up using just 2 of the holes, and you'll see why in the later on in the video. As I said, this is a template. I made it out of 1/8 of an inch thick MDF. And these first 2 holes that I drill are really the only holes you need to start with, making sure I don't go through the thickness of the 3/4 inch plywood. Drill very carefully there. These last 2 holes I didn't need to put in that template, and you'll see why. It's much easier to do it when the shelf support is in place. With each shelf support, I put the first 2 screws in. Then I line it up with a square to make sure each one is on nice and square to the back of the shelf. Move it very carefully and then drill the final 2 holes. This is why you only need 2 holes in the template. Every time you drill and put a screw in, you need to check to make sure the slider is loose and flows smoothly backwards and forwards. You can put a bit of tape around the drill to make sure you don't drill too far into the plywood base. That's it, nice and smooth, move very, very easily. Now the upright I use to support all of these is just a leg from a chrome wire shelving unit that I had lying around. Just test each one like that to make sure that they move smoothly and don't scrape against the sides of the cabinet. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the videos. Sorry it took so long to get this second part out, but I'm very pleased with the way this turned out. It looks quite professional, and it will hold a lot of tins and paper bags and things like that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video again, and look forward to seeing you again soon in the next video.